Hey, Stacey David here with Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This podcast is about all things automotive from any time, any place, and beyond. All right, let's get to it. Well, today I'm here with my buddy Eli Kean from Dixie Chopper. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Dixie Chopper, they are the world's fastest lawnmower.
That's right.
Now, you had something to do with that, right? How did the lawnmower thing happen for you, man?
Yeah, so I didn't have anything to do with the world's fastest, but I married into the family business. Art Evans, he started Dixie Chopper. He was a grasshopper and Dixon distributor.
Yeah.
And so he was taking the Dixons, and guys were breaking them. He'd take the grasshopper transmissions, put them in that Dixon, and he'd loan them out. And then,
yeah, so they were basically hot rod lawnmowers.
And he had a performance shop, actually.
Yeah.
He sold racing performance parts.
That's awesome.
And then he got into the lawnmower business, and he'd loan these machines out, and guys would never return them. He said, "Nah, to heck with this. I'm just going to build my own." And Dixie Chopper was born.
Now, where did the name come from? You have any idea?
So Dixon and grasshopper.
Really?
He was making that Frankenstein machine.
Yeah.
And we were sold really well in the South, and Yankee wouldn't really work.
Yankee Chopper. Yeah.
Yeah. So that Dixie Chopper kind of really works well in the South, and so Florida's one of our best markets, and we have a huge following down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down in Dixieland.
Now, when you say the world's fastest, was there a competition, or did you actually race them? What happened?
So. In 1995, he's always been into aviation. He's a pilot.
Yeah.
He looked at the stock chassis and said, "You know what? I bet we could put a jet-powered engine on this machine, and it would hold up to that kind of power and thrust."
Yeah.
And so they did it. They took a stock mower, took the engine off, put that auxiliary helicopter engine on it. It was a 150 horsepower engine.
Oh yeah, I know the one. Yeah, absolutely.
It was on tool time.
Yeah.
And that's where we got the world's fastest. So Wes and Warren, they'd run it up and down the airstrip because they had an airport.
Yeah.
And they'd run it, 70, 80 mile an hour down the airport strip. And so that's how we got tagged the world's fastest lawnmower.
Yeah. Now I've seen you do some pretty crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've got to do some pretty neat things.
Yeah.
We've got turbocharged lawnmowers and twin engines and all kinds of fun machines and that's kind of the Dixie Chopper MO, is kind of thinking outside the box. How can we take lawnmowers and make them fun, make them interesting?
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted you guys to be part of this lawnmower or this toolbox build, because I mean it's perfect. We're taking one of your machines and cutting it up, powering a toolbox with it. So we're really happy to have you guys involved with that.
No, we're excited. This is our kind of demographic of people that do it themselves, that like to work on their own equipment.
Have you noticed, let's talk about your demographic. Obviously it's a car-oriented demographic, but it's also the hunting and fishing world. It's the outdoorsman. I mean, talk about your demographic a little bit.
Sure.
And how you please them. I mean, how do you meet that market?
Yeah.
How do you grow that market?
So, in terms of our demographic, you're absolutely right. It's the guys that do it themselves. It's hunters, fishermen, the guys that are into racing. So, one of our sponsorships is the Lucas Oil Late Model Series.
Yeah.
Because that's our kind of people.
Yeah.
Guys that appreciate speed, power, performance, everything that Dixie Chopper is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any projects of yourself? Are you a car guy? How'd you grow up?
No, I didn't have any car projects.
Really? That surprises me.
Nope. I got into the Dixie Chopper business and really kind of embraced that
yes,
culture.
You have. Yeah.
It's been really neat to be a part of that. I would have never saw myself getting into the engines and transmissions and that kind of stuff, especially of lawnmowers, and thinking there's anything interesting about that. But I love it. This industry is so unique. It's like nothing I've ever experienced. And when you go to these trade shows, it's like family. You see all your vendors and people that you work with, and it's like nothing I've ever seen. These guys stick around their whole career.
Oh yeah.
You just once you try to get out, and something just pulls you back into that turf industry.
Yeah.
It's really unique, and I enjoy it.
Is there anything, the big thing is electric now. Are you guys working on anything electric, or what's
It's on the radar. Yeah. So we're a publicly traded company, and so that green, earth conscious directive is definitely on our priority list of, we need to be thinking that way. California, some of the other states have already said, no small engines after a certain point. So we have to be kind of getting the ball in motion for when that may happen in all states.
Sure.
So we can't be behind the 8 ball whenever that car does drop. But as of right now, we're still heavily focused on 4-stroke.
Oh yeah.
Small engines.
The Kawasaki.
Kawasaki's a great vendor for us. Our customers love it. Dealers love it.
Yeah.
We really have a good relationship with them.
Yeah. Is that your favorite mower that you guys do?
It's 95% of our production.
Yeah.
And
that's the big. What model is that one?
So we've got the Excalibur here.
The Excalibur.
That's a 35 horsepower Kawasaki engine. Yeah. But they're fun. They came to us a few years ago and said, "Hey, we want to turbocharge this engine. Would you guys let us put it on your mower?"
Yeah.
And maybe the marketing guy's like, "Absolutely."
As long as I get to drive it.
Please. And so we did at our big trade show in 2016. I got to drive it out there and do a little hot laps, and it had rain, so it was muddy and drifting it in the course. And that was one of our best performing videos on social media.
Oh yeah.
It reached 1 million people in 3 days, which is unheard of in the lawnmower industry.
Oh yeah.
But everybody was going nuts, tagging all their friends, thinking it was the coolest thing. Yeah, they straight piped it, and it was all loud.
something, when I saw that video, that was like, you know, these are the guys I want to do this with. Because one of the toolboxes had to be lawnmower powered.
Okay.
You know, because the whole idea of this was to go back to the roots of how car guys grow up.
Yeah.
And we are, either our first mechanical thing is a lawnmower, or it's a motorcycle, or it's a snowmobile, or it's a go-kart. You know, it's one of those small engine things, you know, something like that. And usually a lawnmower, because you're out there mowing the grass for Dad. And you're like, I'd sure like to get this done quicker.
Or something's got to break and you got to figure out how to fix it.
I got to figure it out, got to fix it. And it's like, you know, if I put a bigger engine on there, you know, and, but not everybody has that mentality.
True.
You know, especially in the mower world, they just there to mow the grass and be done with it. Whereas you guys definitely have a hot rod deal.
You know, it blows me away because I grew up in a very small little residential neighborhood where there's push mowers everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I got into Dixie Chopper. I never driven a zero turn until I got into Dixie Chopper. And now it's like mowing is my me time. Like nobody's cutting my grass. Like that is my time that I can get away. I can just think about whatever.
Okay.
And I've got 6 acres at the house now, and with a 20-year-old chopper that's still going great.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the first time you drove a zero turn. Did you wreck it?
I didn't wreck it. It's very low throttle. So it slowed me down quite a bit.
Yeah, did you get into any fences or trees?
No.
I know you hit a tree.
No.
You had to get it to a shrub or something.
No, nothing like that. I was wide open space. We were on a photo shoot, and they're like, oh, we need that mower moved. I'm like, I have no idea how to move it. And they're like, well, you're going to learn right now.
Yeah.
So those guys, I mean, they kind of took me under their wing and taught me the ropes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah,
they are fun.
Yeah, but in that short time, I started in 2011, 2014. I set a Guinness World Record for the most grass cut in 24 hours. So in that short time period, went pretty quick into better get skilled and start learning how to operate these
Now,
things.
is there anybody that's challenging your record?
I haven't seen anybody challenge it. And if they want it, they can go after it because it's painful.
Oh yeah.
24 hours straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was neat. It was a fun experience though. We mowed all night in a lightning and rain and all kinds of stuff.
What were they just bringing you drinks and food?
Yeah, so I had my crew chief, so to speak, and he sat in the truck all night and just kind of we had 2 mowers. So as one would get low on fuel, I'd bring it. He'd fill that one up. I'd take the other one.
Yeah.
And go back out.
So you'd step from one running mower to the other.
Pretty much, yeah. He'd have it all ready for me. That was kind of the Guinness criteria. Was you couldn't have 2 mowers cutting at the same time. And so we were able to swap out. And yeah, it was fun. We got a lot of good publicity out of it. But Dixie Chopper's always kind of about that PR stuff.
Oh yeah, no.
They've had, we had OCC build us a bike in 2005. Very unorthodox,
Well, that was the first time I heard about you guys.
Okay.
I saw that build on there, and I thought Dixie Chopper. That's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been kind of watching your company ever since, going, it'd be great to do something with you guys.
Yeah. No, this is really exciting. I'm happy to be working with you guys. This is everything that you've shown us in here is just awesome.
It's going to be fun.
It's right up our alley, our demographic of people.
Oh yeah.
So I think it makes a perfect fit.
Yeah, and especially, as they start to get finished and we start to do things with them, people get even more excited about them when they, getting people to understand the criteria at first is a challenge. You got to get them out there and get them to sock into it. And it's different. Anytime you do something different, there's people like, I don't get it.
Sure.
Put a lift kit on a Jeep. Would you do that? It's like, no, we've already done that. We're going to do something different.
Everybody does that.
Yeah. So that's cool. And you're married, you have kids?
I do, yeah. Oldest is 9, all the way down to 9 months.
Boys and girls?
I've got one little man.
Yeah,
nice. He's 5. Yeah, I got my man, and he's he wants to have that guy time. And
very cool.
We go to the skate park, or we do things, just me and him. Going to the barbershop's a big deal.
Were you a skater?
Yeah. I still got a skateboard in the truck.
Yeah.
Just in case, you never know.
So were you one of those guys that donated all kinds of body parts to YouTube, breaking things?
I knock on wood, I never broke a bone skateboarding.
What?
It's
impossible.
Ankles and wrists and knees are a whole other thing, but no broken bones. I only had one broken bone my whole life, so I've been pretty blessed in that.
Yeah. That's cool to be a skater. How long did you do it?
Still doing it. I mean,
really?
I started when I was 13. I'm 34 now, and I go to the skate park. I just went with my son the other day. So
you do all the tricks?
I do all the tricks, all the rails and jumps and everything.
Nice.
My oldest girls, they do the horseback riding. So my father-in-law, he's got the horses in the farm, and they go do that. Me and my son, we go to the skate park. He rides his bike and skateboard, and that's kind of our time.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
That's cool. Well, what's the future for you? You going to get a hot rod, or you going to get a car? Or?
I would love. We're talking about old Jeeps. That's kind of what I want to do. I'm going to, CJ or something, and old manual transmission, no tops, no doors. Yeah, I want to be able to just.
So if you could have any Jeep, what would it be?
Not even picky. I mean, that's kind of my criteria.
CJ5, CJ7?
I like the old 4-cylinders.
Oh, really? The old military Jeeps?
Yeah, I like those. But definitely, 5-speed. And like I said, just keep the doors, keep the tops off. Only have it for nice weather. just playing around for fun.
Now, are you a hunter or anything? Or?
I never got into really the hunting thing.
So you just like the outdoor thing?
Yeah, I probably will here in the next few years. My wife, we do a big garden and kind of do more of the self-sustaining. We got the chickens and the eggs, and we'll kind of keep adding new animals.
So you'll be the one standing there with a chicken.
That's right. That's right. If you need a chicken, I can volunteer one.
That will be funny, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the chicken, so I'm happy to loan one out. If we have to throw it through the propeller, so be it. I can afford to lose one.
For those of you that don't understand what we're talking about, one of the lawnmowers I'm building has a big propeller as propulsion. So we're talking about making it look like somehow a chicken ends up in the propeller without getting PETA after us.
A successful automotive project takes planning and organization. But instead of using an old tablet or notebook, there's the Gears Deluxe Project Planning Book. This was designed to help you lay out a project, the parts, the tools, costs, and keep it organized with colored tabs, a pouch for receipts, and even a place to attach photos. If you decide to sell the vehicle, it serves as a complete history of what's been done. If you have a project or plan on starting one, the Gears Project Planning Book is the best way to lay it out and make it happen.
All right, I've got a question here from Bill. Bill said he was listening to the podcast. We were talking with Fat Mans about the frame and doing frame work on project vehicles. And he said he's got a 30s car that he's working on, and he has a question about whether he should use the original frame or he should modify it or should get a replacement frame. When do you know that you don't want to reuse the original frame? Well, that's a really good question because, it can be expensive if you go to completely replace a frame, and there's no reason to do that if you don't have to. So let's just kind of look at this a little bit. First of all, we're talking about cars that have a full frame under them or trucks. Now, a lot of trucks still have full frames under them, but cars kind of stopped back, especially back in the 50s and 60s is when they started to go to unibody stuff. So anything prior to that, your typical hot rods from the 20s, 30s, 40s, even into your 50s and stuff, you had full frames. And of course, your kit cars and some of those are also running frames as well. So how do you know when to replace them? Okay, well, first of all, the obvious part is if it's rusty. If it's rusty or damaged, if the frame has been bent or destroyed and has had to be straightened either in a significant accident over the years of the vehicle, or there's rust and rust places in it, yeah, you need a replacement frame. If it checks out, say you find a vehicle that's been sitting in a barn for a long time or in somebody's garage. Say it was a 1936 Ford that somebody restored original and it sat in the garage for decades and decades, and now you want to turn it into a resto mod or a hot rod. Well, that frame is, even though the metal's 80 years old, it's probably going to still be good and strong. The problem is the way they built frames back then is still something that you're up against. So let me walk you through this real quick. Okay, back in the day when hot rodding was first starting, and people were getting these cars, when they were only, a few decades old, 10, 20 years old, they were just putting engines in these original C-frames and going out there and breaking the frame and wrecking the car. So that's how they did the original hot rods. And then when the power of the motors and stuff got stronger as we're getting into the 60s now, they realized you got to box that frame. So for those of you that don't know, it's basically if you got a C-channel frame, you weld in the fourth wall and you make it a piece of square tubing. And that's boxing the frame. So you basically have a box of steel. Then as more aftermarket parts came out, you would get modern suspensions, and you would not only have to box the frame, but then you had to add the new suspension to it. So see, you're adding a lot of extra effort there. And now that brings us full circle to where you can now just get a replacement frame. That's all new steel, that's already fully square box tubing with modern suspension on it. Now, like I said, you can still buy those parts. You can still go through the process of boxing an original frame and setting it up and putting an aftermarket suspension in it, and those are plenty strong as long as you do the work right and do it out well. So that would be the way to do that. If you've got a solid frame and it's checking out, then probably the best way to do it and keep yourself in some sort of a budget is to do it yourself if you have the skills and the time and the place to do that. Now, if you don't, if you got to go somewhere and have them do it, it's better to get a replacement frame. So hopefully, Bill, that answers your question. It's really going to depend on what kind of tools you have and what kind of skill level you've got and what kind of room that you've got to repair your frame. All right, I've got a question here that comes from Megan. Megan says, Stacey, I have a vintage Corvette that everybody tells me is worth a fortune. Should I sell it? What kind of Corvette you got first? She's not specific about it, but that's actually okay. That actually helps because, first of all, Megan, the deal is if you like the car and you're enjoying the car, keep it. Don't sell it. Don't get caught in that thing about buying and selling in the auction world. Now, that being said, if you're not enjoying the car, if it's something that you don't really care that much about, then yeah, you may want to look at selling it. Now, one thing, people will always tell you it's worth a fortune. And you notice the use of that word, it's worth a fortune, because they don't actually give you numbers. Well, if you ask 10 people what a fortune is, you're going to get 10 different answers. So the amount that vehicle is actually worth that they think is a fortune might be chump change to you, or vice versa. So that's kind of the thing that's happening with the auction world and all of these collector vehicles getting hot. People are always looking, trying to make a deal. So don't succumb to that. If a person comes up to you and says your vehicle is worth a fortune, then just calmly look at them and say, do you want to buy it? And if you do, what do you offer me for it? You'll find out really quick what their idea of a fortune is. And then if somebody does give you a legitimate offer, before you do anything, research the vehicle. Find out kind of what it's going for. There's places like Haggerty's where you can go on there and it will give you kind of an idea of what they think the values of those are because they're writing insurance things on them. So they have a pretty good idea. Things change because of the way the auctions go, but this will at least give you a ballpark. So, if you have a mid-year Corvette, say 63 to 67, those are dancing around 50 to 80 grand, depending on the way they're restored or built. But that's subject to change, so depending on what you got, look at the market, but don't just jump out there and look for that quick money unless you just don't care and you just want to do that game. So hopefully that helps, but hopefully you'll want to hold on to that car and enjoy it because, you got a vintage Corvette. You might as well drive that thing. Okay, so we're working on the 40 Chevy Coupe that I've got in here. We're doing a kind of an old school hot rod out of it. It's just great. It's a fun project. And I run across the typical issue that you run into with a lot of these old cars, soft floors. Now, I know some of you guys are sitting out there going, soft floors? What the heck is that? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. When you're looking at a project, you want to pull up the carpet and see if it's got rusty floors, right? And obviously, rusty floors are very obvious. You've got big holes in the floor. But honestly, you've got 3 different types of floor that you're going to be looking at, and they all require a little different approach to repair them. The first one is, of course, the solid floor, and that's wonderful. And if you can find that, you're miles ahead. But that is usually not the one. So that's not one of the choices. The first one that you run into is the solid floor that has rust holes in it. Now, this is the sort of floor you can tell it's super solid, and then maybe just in a couple spots right under the driver's feet or in a spot here or there, you see a little hole, the size of a quarter or a dime. But when you bang around it, with a screwdriver or a hammer, you can tell the rest of the floor is very solid. Okay, that's a very easy fix. You can fix that with a little patch panel. And you just, you cut out the old rusty metal, you weld in a new spot, and you're ready to go. You got solid floors. The next one is, of course, the rotten floor. And this is when you pull back the carpet and you got big rust holes. I'm talking big ones, the size of basketballs or feet or whatever. And it's like you're obviously going to have to replace the whole floor pan. That is very obvious. that is a floor replacement, so you can plan accordingly. The one we're talking about that a lot of people run into, that I just ran into at the Chevy, is what we call the soft floor. Now, this is a floor that looks solid. Matter of fact, if you looked at this floor, you would say that it doesn't need anything. It's a completely solid floor. But when you look really close, you can see little pinholes here and there in it. And this is the big test. If you put your foot in the middle of it and kind of push down on it, you can flex the floor. It's soft. It shouldn't move. And you can tell it's moving more than it should. What this means is that the whole floor is weak. In other words, there is enough rust underneath that the metal is thin and it's soft. And even though it may look good, this is a full floor replacement, just like the rotten floor. You can't really patch to it. You know, some people try to do it and you create a mess, or you still end up with a weak spot. The best thing to do when you have a soft floor like this is just replace the whole thing. And a lot of times that's an easier replacement than doing the patches anyway. Because most vehicles now, you can get replacement floors, like for this 40 Chevy. There's a place called, Chevs of the 40s that has floors. Summit Racing's got them. There's all kinds of places where you can get replacement sheet metal. So that's what you run into. So the next time you're looking at a project, because see, this car, came to me and it was supposedly solid floors. And you couldn't tell. I looked up underneath, it had no carpet in it, and it looked good. You don't know until you get the seats out of it and you start flexing on it and finding those pinholes. And then you know. So make sure you're taking your time to look it over. And then if you do find a surprise like this, knowing the proper way to fix it is always the key. So good luck to you out there. All right, that's our show for today, which means you need to get out there and start working on something. Spend some time turning wrenches. You'll love it. Also, make sure to check out our website, staceydavid.com. We got all kinds of new products, some great stuff there you're going to love. Also, make sure you check out our social media. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all at Official Stacey David. Our social media is where you're going to find all the bonus content, the giveaways, the contests, the trivia. We even have extra viewer projects that we show everybody to focus on what you're working on. YouTube is where you're going to be able to find all of our episodes of Gears, past, present, and future. I know a lot of you guys ask about that. That's where you can see them. All right, that's all we got. We'll see you next time.